Now for today's mission, we'll be attempting another landing of that first stage back at landing zone 1, or LZ1 as we colloquially call it.
Hey tubers, it's Pop Boys live from the internets. Today I'm just going over this story of SpaceX, which sent a classified US spy agency mission on its way to orbit this morning, bringing the rocket's first stage home for a landing, possibly to fly again, or what they would call a refly. A 230-foot Falcon 9 rocket blasted off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center at 7:15 a.m. Eastern Time this morning, thundering northeast over the Atlantic Ocean, with a U.S. National Reconnaissance Office mission labeled NROL-76. The flight appeared to be off to a good start, but SpaceX cut off its launch broadcast a few minutes into this flight to help preserve its secrecy, as its standard practice during NRO missions, so they claim. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said on Twitter that the mission launched successfully after nearly being scrubbed by strong high-altitude winds. Launch and landing of the NRO spy satellite was good, he said about 20 minutes after liftoff. Tough call, as high-altitude wind shear was at 98.6% of the theoretical load limit of the rocket. While coverage of the mission's climb to space ended early, cameras showed spectacular footage of the 15-story Falcon booster flipping around and firing several engines to fly back to the pad at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, several miles south of the launch site. Dropping from more than 80 miles up, where camera views showed the blackness of space curvature of the Earth, the stage deployed stabilizing fins and fired several engines again to slow its descent. So they claim. 4 legs snapped out from the base of the rocket, which completed a final single-engine burn before a touchdown at landing zone 1, announced with a flurry of sonic booms that rippled across the region. SpaceX has now reached double digits in rocket landings that started in late 2015, recovering the first stage of a Falcon for the 10th time, 4 on land and 6 on a barge at sea. In March, SpaceX successfully relaunched a used booster, or flight proven in SpaceX terminology, for the first time for a commercial satellite mission. More reflights are possible this year, and SpaceX has leased a Port Canaveral facility to accommodate what Musk has said is a growing forest of rocket boosters. Musk believes reusable rockets are the key to drastically cutting launch costs, eventually making it possible to fulfill his vision of colonizing Mars. Or so he claims. Monday's launch, after a sensor problem scrubbed a first try Sunday, was SpaceX's first dedicated mission for the NRO, the intelligence agency responsible for satellites. The NRO confirmed the mission was ordered as part of a satellite deal with Colorado-based Ball Aerospace, according to spaceflightnow.com. That information, combined with knowledge of the Falcon 9 rocket's performance and trajectory, prompted amateur satellite observers experienced in tracking NRO missions to speculate that the mission might be an imaging satellite bound for a low Earth orbit inclined 50 to 60 degrees relative to the equator. The mission patch, according to the National Reconnaissance Office, depicted Lewis and Clark peering through a spyglass and holding a musket heading into the great unknown to discover and explore the newly purchased Louisiana territory. If the speculation is correct, the satellite could be a replacement or successor to one launched in 2006 that failed immediately after reaching orbit. That mission became a controversial one when the government chose to shoot down the satellite with a Navy missile in 2008, saying it posed a risk of releasing a large amount of highly toxic fuel during an uncontrolled re-entry. The launch was SpaceX's 5th this year, continuing its rebound from a launch pad rocket explosion last summer that grounded the company for the last 4 months of 2016. Another Falcon 9 is being prepared to launch a commercial satellite from Kennedy Space Center as soon as May 15th. Well guys, looks like SpaceX is continuing its dominance over the space program. We'll see what happens over the coming months. Thanks for watching, talk to you next time.
Looking down from our interstage. That stage itself is 12 feet in diameter, over 100 feet tall, so you're looking down the length of that stage, and those grid fins also deployed, those grid fins guiding us back through Earth's atmosphere. On the left side of the screen, you're seeing our assets on ground tracking that rocket, the first stage as it's making its way back. Now that boost back burn was a 3-engine burn. Coming up, we're going to have our entry burn, also a 3-engine burn. The entry burn will happen just after the 7-minute mark. The first stage has passed its apogee. It was over 130 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. Those white puffs you're seeing are those nitrogen thrusters on board, which we also use for controlling the vehicle in a guided descent back to landing zone 1. Entry burn should be coming up in about a minute from now. You'll see 3 engines ignite at the base of the rocket. We use that to slow down all of the vertical velocity as the rocket is now falling back to the Earth's surface and accelerating. Just tuning in, we're watching the first stage as it's falling back to Earth in a guided descent back to landing zone 1. We have an entry burn coming up in about 15 seconds. 3-engine entry burn.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And we've entered the entry burn startup. And we have ignition of the entry burn. This is a 25-second burn.
Entry burn shut down.
And we have shutdown for the first stage. In about 45 seconds, we'll have our landing burn begin. That landing burn will last for about 30 seconds, and then we'll have touchdown of the vehicle.
AFTS has the...
That landing burn is going to take us from going about 1,000 kilometers an hour right down to 0 on the surface of Earth. Landing legs will deploy about 10 seconds before landing. Stage 1 just passed through transonic regime.
Landing burn startup.
And landing burn has hit startup, and we have ignition. See the landing legs deploy in a few seconds.
Late deploy. Operators, the Falcon.
And we have touchdown. First stage has landed back at landing zone 1. It's another good day for us at SpaceX. It's a beautiful sight to see. That is the 4th landing of a Falcon 9 at landing zone 1. Now for today's mission, we'll be attempting another landing of that first stage back at landing zone 1, or LZ1 as we colloquially call it.